Now, what I do love is Neil Brown. Okay. I love Neil Brown and what he had to say. And when I said coaches are kind of pissed, Neil Brown is the one that really is fired up here. We're ratcheting up the intensity. We went from Sonny Dykes, who was pointing out something that is probably an annoyance to him, to Mike Gundy, who's being pretty stern about the realities here of the situation of the game, to Neil Brown is just flat out tired of his team being kind of disrespected, man. That is where Neil Brown is at. So let's get to this. Sorry, Sonny. Neil Brown is reacting here before this clips.
Text one of your colleagues.
Neil Brown is reacting here to the fact that there was a top 100 list, the top 100 college football players in America, that was put out by ESPN, and there was not a single West Virginia player included on the list.
Texted one of your colleagues at ESPN the other day. They did this top 100 players list in college football. And I'm like, man, how do you have a job and you're deciding 100 list when like Garrett Green's not on it? And because I don't get it. You know, we got a tackle, Wyatt Milam's going to be either a first or an early second round pick. He wasn't on the list either. And I'm just wondering, did you not get the W as you were looking at players? Because West Virginia, did you not get all the way down to our name? And
well, first of all, very funny with the ending there, but like I'm going to run that back. Neil Brown claims that he texted an ESPN reporter. He's on SEC Network, and he's claiming that he texted an ESPN reporter and said, "Man, how do you have a job? This list sucks."
Texted one of your colleagues at ESPN the other day. They did this top 100 players list in college football. And I'm like, man, how do you have a job and you're deciding 100 list when like Garrett Green's not on it? And because I don't get it. You know, we got a tackle, Wyatt Milam's going to be either a first or an early second round pick. He wasn't on the list either. And I'm just wondering, did you not get the W as you were looking at players? Because West Virginia, did you not get all the way down to our name? And
Neil Brown's fed up, man. Neil Brown is fed up with the shade. He's fed up of everybody overlooking his team. First of all, I appreciate the balls. I mean, whether or not he actually texted the guy to go on and be like, "Hey, man, you guys are stupid." I mean, he's basically saying, "You guys are stupid for not including my players." That's awesome. I love it. The guy's out here fighting for his team. We can have a lot of debates about West Virginia, and there are a lot of debates about West Virginia. They seem to me to be maybe like the biggest wild card team in terms of what I am gauging the perception of the fans are. Because, like I said, I asked for Big 12 hot takes. I get people telling me they're going to miss a bowl game. I get people telling me they're going to win the league. If you're one of the hot take artists that has them missing a bowl, I think you should still very much appreciate what Neil Brown is doing there and appreciate his general attitude. Okay. I'm kind of in the middle on the West Virginia debate because you can say, hey, they're bringing a quarterback with star potential back, a guy who really flashed some star potential in Garrett Green, who he's sticking up for there. Got almost all their skill position players back. They've got two really good running backs. They've got most of the offensive line back, and they won 9 games last year. How is this team not ranked in the top 25 and picked 7th in the preseason Big 12 poll? Like, I get all that. I understand the case for more respect that Neil Brown, I'm sure, is trying to help make here. I also understand they missed 4 of the top 6 last year in the schedule. They didn't play Texas. They only beat 1 bowl team in the regular season. So it was a little bit more hollow than it could have been of a 9-win season. And now they get 5 of the top 6 on the schedule this year. And in fact, all 5 of those games are in a row. They've also got to play Penn State and at Pitt in the non-con. It is a much tougher schedule. I'm somewhere in between. But that doesn't matter here. We all should appreciate what Neil Brown is doing and just sticking up for his squad, man. I mean, the guy last year had to deal with everybody talking all offseason about his job status and the fact that he was going to get fired and things were going downhill, a train wreck. It's not in good shape right now. That's what Neil Brown had to hear about all year last year. Then he was picked last in the Big 12. He has to go through the car wash at Big 12 media days, knowing, hey, we were the team that was picked last. That's not fun. especially in a year where the league was expanding. There were even more teams. You're looking at this like, man, we've been playing in the Big 12. I'm looking down here. We're 14th. We're 14th. It's not fun. Neil Brown had to deal with that and kind of just take his medicine. And then he goes out there and wins 9 games, brings most of the roster back, including a quarterback. A lot of people might say, well, we're bringing a lot of people back, but what's the quarterback? We got questions there. No, he's bringing the quarterback back. And yet he's picked 7th. He's receiving some votes, but not in the preseason top 25. His players now are getting left off of this top 100 list. It just feels like the no respect thing never ends, I think, if you are Neil Brown in West Virginia right now. So I understand why he is a little bit fed up, and he now has more confidence behind him where it makes more sense to stand up a little bit. Last year, you could do some of that. Now, he did come out and say, like, I don't think we're the worst team in the league, but you got to be a little bit more subdued because things had not been going great. Now you've got something to stand on. You've got a leg to stand on. You got your balance back. He had been hit with a couple of right crosses and was a little bit wobbly. Well, now he's standing up, made it through the 10 count, and he's back out there ready to go. And now he's swinging. Like, now he's coming out, trying to throw some haymakers here. So I love it. Like, what is the downside? I guess would be my question to this. Like, what would be the downside to coming out and acting like this, especially when the key distinction I will make here is this is not Neil Brown coming out saying, you guys are all idiots because you think I should be fired. You guys are all idiots because you thought, I am a bad coach. He's saying you guys are idiots because you don't respect my players. He's fighting for his players here. The big difference and distinction there. Like, that will resonate in the locker room. He's talking about their first round offensive tackle. He's talking about their quarterback who has drawn from some, now don't shoot the messenger on this, but has drawn some like Johnny Manziel comparisons. That comp I've seen laid out there by a couple of people this offseason. I think Garrett Green has, at times, he flashed some real star ability last year. So he's sticking up for his players. Do I think Garrett Green has done enough at this point to earn the distinction as a top 100 player in college football? I'd have to really parse the list, what quarterbacks are in front of him and whatnot. But my gut reaction would be to say no, I don't think so. But there's no downside to Neil Brown coming out and saying this guy should be on the list, and you guys are dumb for not putting him on the list because he had a great season, and I love my guys. He's going to get guys to play for him. You're going to need guys to be playing hard for you, and you also are going to need guys to advocate for you if things do get dicey. And that's where I come down to the downside of this to me is non-existent. If they do have a rough year, he's going to have players going to bat for him because he's going to bat for them in the most public way possible. Nothing wrong with standing up for your players in virtually any scenario. Now, to bring Mike Gundy back into it, one of the few times where I remember a coach doing that in a very public way that didn't really work out and was a little bit complex and awkward and not the best was actually the I'm a man, I'm 40 rant and Bobby Reed, the quarterback who he was sticking up for there. And you can read about that, but that it was not super well received by Bobby Reed. We'll put it that way. But 9 times out of 10, I think if you're going to go stump for your players like Mike Gundy just did there, that's a good thing. That's a good thing to be doing. So I very much was on board with what Neil Brown was doing there. Go down swinging. I think it seems like Neil Brown has really just decided, I feel like this is moving in the right direction, and I definitely want to keep pushing and promoting all of that. But even if this thing goes down, if this ship goes down, I'm going down swinging. I am not going to be just feebly and idly watching by. I will stick up for my players. I will stick up for this program. That's how I'm going to go out. And you know what? I got to tip my cap to Neil Brown for the attitude on that. So